Welcome back to Celestia Astrology. Thank you for joining me. This is a more advanced video talking about sect of planets. Now, sect can be a difficult concept to understand, and you don't need to fully understand it. What I want to achieve today is just for you to understand and recognize the sect in your own chart. So what I'm showing you here is the chart of today when I'm recording it. And where we need to look is for where the sun is. So the sun is that round glyph with the dot in the middle. And we find the sun up here in the 9th house. And generally what we're looking for is the line that runs between the ascendant. And what we're looking for is the line that runs between the ascendant and the descendant. So if you place an imaginary line between these two, the ascendant and the descendant, I'll see if I can draw a line. There we go. So if the sun is above this line, then it's a day chart, which means this line is the horizon, the Earth. So the sun rises here. So this would represent early morning, somebody who was born in the morning, rising up. And if the sun is around here, it would be around midday. I'm recording just after 1 o'clock. So the sun's in that position of, yeah, it's past midday, it's 1 o'clock. And then the sun would start to set around here, and then it would set in the evening here. And anything below this line represents nighttime. And the moon would, usually we'd expect the moon to be above here, but sometimes the moon can be below as well. And sometimes the moon can be above, depending on the moon's phases. But generally, if the sun, it's the sun that we're looking for, so don't be distracted by where the moon is. So if you see the moon, generally in these houses, 12 to 7, but especially look for the ascendant line. If the sun is above these lines, then you know that you're looking at a day chart. And if I bring the chart forward by a few hours, and you see the sun below the horizon. So now we are looking at a night chart. So if you see the sun between houses 6 to 1 in your chart, and the sun is below this imaginary line, wherever your ascendant and descendant line, draw your own imaginary line. And if you see the sun below that, then you know that you have a day chart. Now, the significance of this is if you have a day chart, then you have a different team of planets than if you have a night chart. So imagine it's like a political team. You have the team that's in power, and you have the team that's in opposition. And the team that's in power are on your team. You know, they might not totally agree with everything you do and say, but they're not going to act against you. So they're going to support you in the important things. And the team in opposition may well act against you. They are still benefic and malefic planets, but they may well not always act in your best interests. So that's where it helps to know which they are. And these are called accidental dignities. So they're not as important as a planet in its domicile. That would still overrule sect. That would be more important. So if you have, say, Jupiter in Sagittarius, that's still more important than it being out of sect. So we have the essential dignities, which is dignity by domicile, by decan, by bound, and by triplicity. And then you have accidental dignities, which can be any of like up to about 15 different things that can bring dignity to a planet by different means. And sect is one of those accidental dignities. But it does help when we're looking at the benefics and the malefics to know if they're actually working on your team and what you can expect from them. And if it's not on your team, you might understand if a benefic is bringing you challenges, and also if a malefic is working in your favor. That's important to know as well. So what happens if you have a night chart, as we're looking at here? Well, the team on your sect are the nocturnal planets, the planets who enjoy the nighttime, and that is Mars and Venus. So those two planets, they're closer to the sun, but they enjoy the protection of the night, the lunar sphere. So those are the teams that will be on your sect, and they'll be acting on your behalf. So here we find Mars in Taurus and Venus in Gemini. And what happens if you're of the day sect? If we put the sun back here, you would be of the day sect. Well, in this case, Saturn would be on your side, and also Jupiter. So an astrologer would take all of this into account, and a lot of other factors. There's a lot of other accidental dignities they would also bring into account when they're synthesizing your chart, and they wouldn't necessarily share all of that into you in a reading, but when they're looking at how a planet manifests for you, they would share a lot. They would talk to you about how it's working, but they would also be looking at a lot of the accidental dignities to synthesize how a planet is working for you. So we see Jupiter there in Gemini, and we see Saturn there in Pisces. And we know that on a day chart, that those would be working on your team. So I hope that helps you drill down a little bit deeper into what's going on with your chart and what planets are really working on your side and being able to identify them. And of course, this video is for people who know some traditional astrology already. Okay, thank you so much for joining me.